Well, I want to thank everybody for your patience. Right now, we'll have a motion would be in order to re-enter the public portion of the Mackinac Bridge Authority.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to enter back into open public session.
I second the motion.
A motion's been made and duly supported to re-enter into the public portion of the meeting. The time is 9:56. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And once again, thank you for your patience. We'll now hear from one of our bridge engineers, Cole. Will give you an update on the maintenance projects. Good morning, Cole.
Detail that we are fixing at the towers, specifically at our transition span, which, just as a quick reminder, is a short span that's actually in between our main suspended span and our backstay spans. And basically this transition span, it helps accommodate the movement that happens at the towers. These are, very large spans, so they have to accommodate a lot of movement. And we are having an issue because in order to help that movement, we had installed these link bolt assemblies that helped push and pull that transition span. And where those link bolt assemblies were located, we were finding various degrees of cracking. So we started a project last fall where we were repairing and reinforcing different locations. While the project was ongoing. So these are beams that we basically put in as secondary supports to help support those beams that were experiencing the cracking. So rather than going in and taking those out, which would have been difficult, we just supported and helped take some of that load off of those beams. And those are all complete now. And so far I was actually under there on Tuesday. No link bolts were broken, and everything seemed to be working well. So that was good. And these are now painted green and blend in with the rest of the bridge. Some other maintenance we've done every spring. We clean the bridge. Over the winter, we place sand on the bridge rather than salt, but that sand gets on the structure. So it's the first thing we do at the beginning of every maintenance season is the guys go. In the top right there. Another item we've been doing is grading replacements, which I've highlighted before. We're constantly replacing our grading panels. And this was a neat picture that was actually given to me by one of our painters, Rich Hillock. And it just goes to show how much work goes into those panels. So before they get put in, the painters actually get recruited to help clean and cut those panels in order so they fit properly, and we keep traffic stoppage to a minimum when we're out on the bridge. Whoops. Speaking of our painters have been spot painting the bridge per normal. One thing nice this year is it's the first year in several that we actually have the bridge to ourselves. So we've been sharing the bridge with Seaway contractors who had a contract with us to paint the towers, and they completed the painting of the South Tower last year. And although the tower looks great, they did a good job. We weren't able to get in there because we wanted to give them space and avoid their lane closure. So this year we've been able to get back in there around the South Tower and hit some of those areas that we had to kind of put on hold while they were there. So As you can see on the left, that's a before and an after. Just kind of shows how much that painting does kind of give new life to the steel and keeps it extending its life. Another thing we're doing, as part of the South Tower contract, we actually did not include the tower hangers, and that was just because we kind of wanted to keep that in-house. Contractors do a great job, but it's our bridge, and it's something that we want to make sure we maintain really well. So that's something we're touching up this year now, is going in and so that the whole tower has a new coat of paint. Just kind of to show the versatility of a day at the Mackinac Bridge. You never know what you're going to do. This was actually in the spring. With the spring thaw and rains, we actually had a washout on our plaza where one of our drainage structures had failed and created a hole next to the plaza deck. And luckily we had some of our guys had previous experience with underground construction. This is Keith Ginnup and Stanley Weckworth, who have been with us for a long time, but they actually went in, dug it all out, reconstructed that manhole from where it was good, and that top left is a after picture. And I went out there when it was raining. Everything's draining properly again, and it's just, you never know what you're going to find sometimes. But not only do we maintain the bridge, but we do maintain the campus and the plaza of the Mackinac Bridge Authority. Lastly, an update on our North Viaduct project. I highlighted that we're in the design phase of that project, which is still ongoing. As part of that project, we will be repaving the North Viaduct spans as well as rehabilitating the joints. And these are cores that were taken as part of the 2020 deck study. And because Parsons Corporation completed that deck study for us and were actually selected for the design, kind of a benefit was we had access to those cores, and they actually sent those in to materials testing consultants in Grand Rapids. And the latest update is they have completed laboratory testing on those cores, and basically they're confirming how well that pavement performed when it was last done in 2008, because that was a special mix design for us to try to make it as impermeable as possible. And MDOT actually created it for us back in 2008, 2009. And the report is forthcoming, but it's been good news. It seems that that pavement performed really well, so we're likely to see maybe not the exact pavement, but a similar mix design when we do go and repave the North Viaduct spans. Now lastly, just this week, if on your way through, you might see an extra boat in the water from Collins Engineers. They started this week with our underwater inspection. Our underwater inspection is required every 5 years per FHWA regulations. And it's actually a full inspection of all 32 water piers, and they dive them. This year, we're doing something that we don't do every underwater inspection, which is we're having a hydrographic survey performed as well. And we have had this done before, the last time in 2007, and we just felt it was a good time the technology's advanced, to get that survey done, compare it with that 2007 data, and just see the differences, because that survey really gives us pretty good imagery of the channel bottom. And obviously, we have pretty deep piers, the deepest being about 142 feet. So to get images down there will be really helpful as we rate the condition of the piers. So with that, any questions?
Paving scheduled next spring, next summer?
Right now, we have been planning on the spring.
Of advice, and Kim will remember this one, we did it last time. The temperatures are cool in the spring, and the contractor had trouble with 38-degree temperature. I remember being involved going, what do you mean you left? Because the contractor left it. It was right before Memorial Day. So just one of those memory pieces that says just think about temperatures.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We'll definitely make note and modify our specifications.
Caliber, that means a lot.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Cole.
Yep, thank you.
Good morning, Julie. It's nothing like hearing from the chief engineer first thing in the morning.
So I'm going to be talking today by the, and those two antennas work in conjunction to map the surface currents of the Straits of Mackinac system, and Michigan Tech are hosting work on the Lake Carriers Association, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the U.S. Coast Guard, Marine Pollution Control will be there, the DNR, and the media. And so we're hoping that
I wanted to take a minute or a few seconds here as one of my last official acts of the, and on behalf of the board, you know, I want to start bringing some real recognition here. And let me tell you, 30 years of overseeing Michigan's very remarkable what you've done. You're such a very unique person. Loyalty and the dedication and everything else that you've done to this bridge, I'm telling you, is second to none. And we as a bridge authority have never not noticed that. And we thank you for your dedication. And we've worked hard. Thank you again. Some reports on legislative matters. Kim, please continue.
Look at the key facility bill. It was ruled that we were not and pursued becoming a key facility. So Representative DeMoose introduced this back in September of last year. It went through House committee hearings where
transpired here. But there's a couple people that played to where it is, and you stop and think about it in today's climate. Have a bill that goes through the House of Representatives 96-6. That's very good news right there. It's a quick shout out to Representative DeMoose. He picked this ball up and run with it. And also want to thank Kim and Troy Hagan. Troy is, there he is back there. Stand up for a minute, Troy. Troy did a great job on, you know, we had several meetings individually, committee hearings, Zoom meetings, individual phone calls to reps and senators, but it was all done under Troy's leadership. And you may want to revisit his contract director, because I'm not sure that the pay is right on that. But at any rate, thank you, Troy. We really appreciate it.
Isn't that a
And I want to thank a couple. I want to thank the entire board, because everybody was involved in it. But there was two members here particularly that, and that's a member. Thank her for her. Bill Milliken. Everybody Bill through. So with that being said, I'd like to call on Bill Milliken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry. Could I just add one? Also, kudos to the staff now in the Senate. I think it would behoove us as an entity to not only, first I'd say, enlisting the help of the other bridges that are so impacted by this or would be so detrimental get signed into law. So as an entity, we've got to keep enlisting all the other bridges to help us get this across the finish line, but then also really pressing on the Senate to finish the job on this bill, because while they are adjourned, it is of critical importance that we get this done as soon as possible. So I would just maybe just want to add that 2 cents worth then, that we've gotten it so far along thanks to the staff work and the attorney's assistance on this, the AG, but getting it, we need the Senate to act as quickly as possible.
Right. And we're certainly looking forward to the fact that they're going to, because of the infrastructure, not only just the Mackinac Bridge, but the entire state of Michigan, how this is affected. So, Bill?
And to that end, I have a resolution that I'd like to put forward for the Bridge Authority is committed to preserve and maintain the state of Michigan's single largest asset and one of to provide safe, pleasurable, and expedient passage over the Straits of Mackinac for economic benefit and improved quality of life. Risk for bridge operations and the traveling public. And whereas trespassing on the Mackinac Bridge is dangerous to patrons crossing the bridge, as well is a key facility in the state of Michigan and is a critical connection point between the two peninsulas of Michigan. And whereas trespassers on the Mackinac Bridge should be held accountable for the very serious nature of their offense, and now therefore be it resolved that we, the undersigned members of the Mackinac Bridge Authority, strongly support House Bill 5315, which makes the Mackinac Bridge and other facilities in the state of Michigan key facilities on these key facilities as a felony offense.
Is there support to the motion? The motion's been, it's been moved and supported to support the resolution. Bill 5315. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Kim, would you call roll, please?
Rajaba? Yes. Member Cheeseman?
Yes.
Member Kinley?
Yes.
Member Steidel?
Yes.
And Member Miller?
Much. Kim, you still have the floor on another piece of.
Thank you for this. Remember, we've been looking at the farm implement legislation back when it was proposed as a House bill, House Bill 4165. We testified in opposition to those in the Transportation Committee, and they didn't make it, they were not voted out of the Transportation Committee of the House. Bills on the screen there, and I'd like to just talk about these bills as they were written and as they were submitted. I have a few points to talk about and a few slides to show you. So they are, these Senate bills would allow implements of husbandry to cross the Mackinac Bridge. And so as a point of note is that these were prompted by implements of husbandry online. These are the kinds of things that you come up with. And so those would be allowed as the bills are written. We would not know the weights of any of these vehicles if they showed up to cross the bridge. So all that is very concerning. The bills do not require any MDOT permitting of the farm implements, and right now on flatbed trailers, on low boys. If they're over width, they get a permit through MDOT. MDOT does all our permitting where the weights are declared, the dimensions are declared. They come across on that trailer system. They can drive all they want on interstate. They're legal. All the rules of the road are in place for the drivers of the trailer. Was on a lowboy trailer coming across the bridge. We know what that whole thing weighs because we saw it go across the weigh and motion scale. If one of those vehicles tried to go across the weigh and motion scale, which they couldn't because that stretch of the highway is not included in these bills, so they wouldn't be allowed in the first place, but I'm not sure any of those vehicles would read correctly on our weigh and motion scales. So that's very concerning. You wouldn't want vehicles like this driving next to the normal traffic, and so that would add jobs for our maintenance workers and cost for our maintenance workers, as would figuring out that weight if we needed to have scales or something like that put in place. I wanted to point out too that opening the doors for farm implements, implements of husbandry, would lead us down a path of opening the doors to other things. So on this slide here, if you Google implements of husbandry, you come up with vehicle equipment. You come up with the same exact vehicles being. How would we know when something showed up, whether it was an implement of husbandry, whether it was from a contract? Termination. So it does open the door to other things. Thing that is a farm could be considered farm implements. If you look online for implements of husbandry and ATVs, there's all kinds of uses for all these smaller vehicles being used as an implement of husbandry in all kinds of different ways. And so those could be showing up at the bridge and saying, I'm a farm implement, I want to go across. So we're concerned about that too. And I wanted to mention too that the rules of the road are kind of unknown in this situation, other than farm implements in general have different rules for insurance, have different rules for lighting, for brakes, for all kinds of things like that. And how would that apply to them coming across the bridge? And do we want them mixing in with our normal traffic? I have very high concerns about that. Insurance on their vehicle. They're not required to have the same kinds of insurances. So if they damage something, how does that work? I don't know. And they don't pay a fuel tax for the fuel that's in their farm implement. So there's just a ton. This is a legally transported couple of different farm implements, 2 tractors and a plowing machine on a lowboy trailer. And so we see this kind of thing all the time, whether it's farm implements or construction vehicles or any kind of thing like that. And if they're over the 8'6" wide, they have to have an oversized permit, but they legally come across. We saw the weights of this vehicle as it came across our scales. It's just a wonderful, tried and true way to get vehicles like this across the bridge. So as a staff recommendation, we have testified in the House hearing and in the Senate Transportation hearing in opposition to these farm implement bills, and we would like
Legislation's always been an interesting. Normally, it's driven by a huge public outcry or feel that, you know what, we have to change this because it's just impeding. How many calls have you had about allowing this to happen on the bridge?
just the one individual. In the past 20 years that I've been there, they're not calling and asking to do this.
Yeah, very good. And we can certainly see how detrimental it is to the bridge itself, especially the impeding the traffic, the structural integrity, and everything else. So, you know, once again, I want to thank everybody for their involvement on this. And it's helped us a lot being educated. And Kim has done a phenomenal job on this. Thank you. Kurt?
Yeah, I have a question, you know, of the Mackinac Bridge, but this is Interstate 75. Allowing those pictures of those vehicles on Interstate 75. I mean, that's a piece that just gets missed a lot.
Yeah.
And the last one is the one that really, really concerns me, knowing the push for more ATV access and, you know, alongside. So I'm completely supportive, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and I think I-75 is about 1,800 miles in total length. So we're asking for a little carve-out here of 5 miles. Good point. Thank you, Kurt. Yeah. Go ahead, Bill.
Mr. Chair, I also wanted to cite Representative DeMoose and his assistance crossing the Capitol and coming over to the Senate side to
Oh,
explain why the opposition and why he put his bill forward in the House. That was helpful, and it gave this momentum.
thank you very much. At this time, Trish, I'd like to call on you for your report.
Thank you. So, and I'd like to maybe make just a couple comments before a suggested motion, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I also want to say thanks to the staff on this legislation. It has been a real challenge, and you know, certainly we have with our other legislation we discussed where we're trying to push something. You know, obviously sometimes comes the day where we have to take a big gulp and sometimes decide whether we can support, be neutral, or oppose legislation. And I really want to say thank you to the staff for their diligent work on this. The staff and the subcommittee worked diligently to look at alternatives to this legislation or ways to narrow or tailor it, and really overturned many rocks. Kim in particular, along with the MDOT staff, how could we make this legislation better? It is so concerning, but the subcommittee, with staff's help, looked at all sorts of variations, different parameters we could put in. Unfortunately, in the end, after all that work, it just became clear there was no workable way to narrow this in a way that would not still jeopardize the structural integrity of the bridge and safety of motorists. And that has to be our utmost top priority. So we really uncovered all those rocks. Thanks again, Kim. But unfortunately, there was just no workable way to do so. So I just wanted to make sure that we made that crystal clear to the rest of the board. I guess in the end, I would like to make a motion on this issue, if I could.
Please do.
Okay. So I move that the board agree that the MBA's bridge director and this board's special committee acted in good faith by thoroughly evaluating whether the proposed bills regarding farm implements could be modified to become bills that this board could support. In the end, these individuals determined that the proposed bills and variations of them, if signed into law, would compromise the structural integrity and operations of the Mackinac Bridge and the safety of motorists who travel on the bridge. They accordingly, I guess that would be us, recommend for these reasons that the board oppose the proposed bills or variations of them. I so move for the board's agreement and support on that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I hear support?
I'd be happy to support that motion.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Is there any discussion on the motion? The motion is to not support the two Senate bills that Trish had made reference to, which is, I believe, 1014 and 1078. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying, oh, excuse me, roll call, please.
Okay, Chairman Gleason?
Yes.
Vice Chair Trahey?
Yes.
Director Ajaba? Yes. Member Cheeseman?
Yes.
Member Kinley?
Yes.
Member Steidel?
Yes.
And Member Milliken?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Trish, for your expertise once again. Okay, Mike, the 200th millionth vehicle crossing the Mackinac Bridge.
Good morning.
We had great participation. You see there was the Visitors Bureau from Senegnes, the Chamber of Commerce from Mackinac City. Shardy and Carolyn were there, which was very nice. Some of the topics that we touched on, we had meetings prior to this that led up to this event. The Chamber and Visitors Bureau were great to work with. They went to the local communities in Mackinac City and Senegnes. I think there might have been some participation from the island also. They were able to put together a great gift basket. It was larger than a laundry basket, had a value over $500. Was a husband and a wife, 2 teenage children. They were in a pretty small car. They were headed to Pictured Rocks, I believe, to do some hiking, maybe some kayaking. It was kind of a too good to be true, feel-good story. Like, wow, this is the perfect family for this. And yeah, and it was one of the things I enjoyed the most was they were driving a small
You and the entire staff, and it was kind of unique how it got funneled right down. And there's no doubt in anybody's mind that that was the 200 millionth vehicle. I mean, there's a science to it. I was pretty impressed on how they counted it and narrowed it right down, and fantastic work. And it was nice enjoying sharing the day with Caroline there. We had a good time. So, thank you.
Great.
As always,
Great.
you never cease to amaze us.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim, you have an update for us on the upcoming cable inspections?
Sure. I'd just like to say that panel to work on revising the guidelines for the inspection of suspension bridges, main cable systems. And so I was very happy to be selected, and I've been participating in that since 2018. And so that panel was tasked with hiring a consultant to revise those guidelines and to investigate how it should be revised. The original guidelines came out in 2004, and so suspension bridges around the world have been using those guidelines, and it was time to look at the results that they'd obtained and how to change those. And so that was our task, and we're reaching the end of that task right now. If you'll remember, the requirement is to actually open up the main cable to look to the very center of the main cable and assess the condition of those wires. And so that's what Parsons is doing in this picture, cracking open the main cable to look at those wires. And so that's the process we are tasked with reevaluating. The result of that is they use a corrosion chart to gauge the stages of corrosion in the wires, and then they assign a corrosion stage to every wire in the whole cross-section of the main cable. And so this is what it was in the past, and one of the things that was done in this change to the guidelines was to fine-tune the statistical analysis that goes into this analysis right here. And so that was a big part of the changes that were done to make it more reliable statistically. And another big part of the changes were to make the inspection more of a risk-based thing. So
Go ahead, Bill.
How does an operator dehumidify a cable?
well, have you been in our that does is it lowers the relative humidity inside the cable so that corrosion can't happen. So as long as that dehumidification process is working all the time,
From the board? Thank you, very nice, appreciate it. Go ahead, Kurt, I'm sorry.
I just want to congratulate Kim and thank her for being on that committee and serving. I'm sure you now have a bigger network of owner-operators across the country to deal with. And frankly, that's a huge benefit to the authority, right? To tap into the national expertise.
report. Thank you, Kim. Okay, we'll hear from our Vice Chair, Chair of the Financial Committee, Amy. Your report, please.
Thank you. Yes, we had a meeting yesterday here in the same facility to host the Finance Committee. All members were present. Thank you, gentlemen. We had first an update from Greg, Lewis, and Lon from the Bureau of Investment Services with the Michigan Department of Treasury. They gave us a great update as to where we are with the economy and how that may impact our investments. The good news is long-term, our investments are very stable, regardless of the inflation and the things we're seeing going on with Ukraine. Mike gave a traffic and revenue update, which shows we are down with our mainly commercial traffic. That's being attested to the increase in gasoline prices primarily, but we're actively monitoring that and aware of those down tolls. There were some action items that the board approved, and those were the repayment of an advancement to the Department of Transportation. These payments are due every August in the amount of $250,000. Also, Cami, the CFO of the Mackinac Bridge Authority, gave us the proposed fiscal 2023 budget. Basically, the budget consists of about $24.6 million, and the operating expenses that are consuming that consist of bridge services, maintenance, infrastructure preservation, administrative costs, finance, and capital assets. And of that number, the most significant cost in there, or the biggest increase, I guess, in the infrastructure projects, that is tested to roughly $11 million for the bridge deck resurfacing, which Cole touched on, that's going to be occurring in 2023, maybe spring, maybe a little bit later, depending on how that goes, but that's a huge chunk of our budget for 2023. Overall, we recommended approval of that budget. A couple other recommendations that Cami had regarding credit card fees. So with COVID, a lot of people were not using money and accepting money and using credit cards, and as just the trends are with people nowadays using credit cards for just about anything, whether it's a Starbucks coffee or going across the Mackinac Bridge, we are we are paying and incurring these fees that range anywhere from 2.5% to 3%, and the magnitude of the transactions is a significant amount that the authority is not realizing, to the tune of about $250,000. So that are out there, they range in their percentage fees, and also it was recommended that the Attorney General's office Kathleen Gleason look into, just to make sure we're okay to recoup those percentages that we determine to be appropriate. Another item that was discussed was tokens. So I don't know how many people remember tokens, but they're still out there that motorists can use to drop in to pay for their crossing compared to the credit card or cash. They're not allowed anymore, but sorry. They were 2019, I think we stopped doing the tokens. People still have them in their drawers or in their pockets or in their vehicles, and they want to get reimbursed for them. And the reimbursements over the last several years have dwindled down to like 121 tokens were redeemed. There's an extensive administrative burden to redeeming those tokens, and it was recommended that we cease reimbursing the tokens with well advanced to the public as of this December 31st of 2022. I think there was one other discussion point. We did have a human resource update regarding the restructuring of the unemployment, the winter call-ins, and the winter work. And it was a lively discussion, really focusing around the loss of 18 maintenance staff that's occurred since the first quarter of 2019. And that the Mackinac Bridge Authority and the administration, we have a need for 91 maintenance workers. We have 83. There's active efforts to fill these positions that are so needed, and aggressive recruiting, hiring, training, and retaining these specialized maintenance workers is so required for the structural integrity of and the safe operation of the bridge. So Kip highlighted what the efforts are out there right now that you guys are doing, and we know that it's such a specialized operation that these people have to incur that, we're seeing the industry wide. It's hard to find good people. It's even harder to retain them after you've trained them. So with that, with the action items, if we could get a motion to approve.
I'd be pleased to support the Finance Committee Chair's motion.
I'll support.
Is there any discussion? A lot of you were there. Shorty,
Yeah.
sorry.
We have a motion and support on the table to accept the financial report from Vice Chair Trahey. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, or roll call, please.
All right, Chairman Gleason,
Yes.
Vice Chair Trahey,
Yes.
Director Ajaba, Member Cheeseman,
Yes.
Member Kinley,
Yes.
Member Steidel,
Yes.
Member Milliken.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for that wonderful report, very detailed. Okay, we have the fall 2022 meeting schedule. And I see it's gonna be in Ann Arbor, and I'm sure we have a good tour guide down there to help us. I don't think there's a need for a motion there, which is informational. With that being said, Amy, did you want the floor for a minute? Okay. Okay, I guess before I get into public comment, I just want to say thank you a million times. Unbelievable, not only for the individuals that I have the pleasure of serving with today, but all your predecessors and all the staff and the MDOT people, and it's just been a tremendous, tremendous experience. I can't thank you enough. With that being said, public comment. Anyone from the public comment? Steve? I should announce it. Steve, he's the chair of the Northern Michigan University Board, and thank you for your service. So, with that being said, a motion to adjourn would be in order. Is there support? It's been moved and supported. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.